Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week, and everything in between. Now, of course, before we start the episode, hopefully you guys can like, comment, and subscribe on this video. It really does help the channel. Also, I do have a Kickstarter for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter, and the Haunting crossover. Like Father, Like Daughter is about a high school girl. Father left her become a full-time superhero. Everyone in the world loves him except for her, and then she inherits his abilities. And we have Haunting, who is about a young boy who has ghosts following him, and he doesn't want to take any responsibility for it. And they meet at a Halloween dance, and chaos ensues with zombie, ghosts, and superhero action. So hopefully, guys, go check that out. It's only 8 days left for that campaign. And of course, at the end of the video, I will discuss the viewer's pick of the week, so stay tuned to that as well. Now, jumping into the episode, we have 11 comics to talk about, so a pretty average size haul for me. And number 11 this week was, disappointingly, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, issue 1. So, I'm a huge Supergirl fan. I love the character. And I haven't been happy with the direction of the character in a while. I would say the last good Supergirl story for me was Supergirl being super. Probably the best Supergirl story ever was Supergirl being super for me. I love that story to death, and I wish that Supergirl would go more in that direction of teen drama, coming of age, how everyone feels like being an alien type storyline. This goes in the opposite direction. So this is Tom King, the last Tom King book I enjoyed was probably Mr. Miracle. I really enjoyed Mr. Miracle, but since then I feel like a lot of the stories have been the same, a lot of a similar vibe. And this is actually his first, from what I know of, female-led book, which is cool, seeing a different direction for the writer. Now, the issue starts out with a random character talking about her father's death. I'm like, okay, so that's an interesting way to intro. And then we meet up with Supergirl drunk not on her 21st birthday, but saying, hey, I turned 21, I'm allowed to be drunk. And that's pretty much the whole issue. It's just seeing Supergirl drunk and hungover, and this random girl's story who was introduced in the beginning of the book. And I just couldn't get into it. I wasn't really entertained by it because I feel like it's very similar to the styles of storytelling we saw with Mr. Miracle and his mental health with Vision and many of Tom King's other books, besides that this is now a female character and is Supergirl. The thing that I definitely see is that it's trying to go for like a World War Hulk, let's break down this character type style book, because Supergirl doesn't have her powers here. She doesn't have her super strength. She's able to bleed, but I don't mind those stories, but it just feels like it's copying other characters because it did well for them, and I don't know if this is the necessary journey for Supergirl right now. So I don't know if I'm going to pick up the next issue. The art was really good, but I'm just not feeling the story. So I'm giving that 2 stars, and that is number 11. Moving on to number 10, another book I think I might drop just because I was really looking forward to this one, but it just hasn't hit home for me. And that is Silver Coin, issue 3. It's an anthology horror book by different creators, but the same artist on every issue. Which I love that concept, which is why I stuck with it for so long. But there hasn't been any issue that's blown my mind. And anthologies for me are always a little hard to get into because, even if there's a central theme, you're always following different characters and their different journeys. So again, a little hard for me to follow sometimes. And this one I just couldn't get into, sadly. This kind of, not murder mystery, but after a murder happens, it's very, I Know What You Did Last Summer style. And then, chaos ensues and people go crazy because of this coin. And that's a big part of the story here. But it just didn't do it for me, sadly. And I'm probably going to end up dropping this book. So I'm giving that one 2 stars. And that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, which is The Mighty Valkyries, issue 3. Another book that I want to love more than I have been. I love this creative team. I also love Jane Foster. But I feel like since we got a new Valkyrie and there's so many characters that are trying to be balanced here, it feels a little uneven this issue. We have the gods situation with Hela and her wife. And then we also have obviously Jane Foster. We have Rin, I believe is the new Valkyrie's name. So we have a lot of balls in the air, and I just don't think that the book is quite juggling them as well as they could. And still, I'm most invested in the Jane stuff, and I just feel like she's not getting a lot of panel time for, for the story that she needs to tell. And there's still some good moments there. I really like her fight between Kraven. I love the artwork for Jane Foster's story in particular. But then, I get out of it once you get to the other storylines, and I just feel like there's too much going on. So overall, I'm going to give that 2.5 stars. I do hope this one picks up a little bit, because I really do love this series and this franchise, but this volume hasn't been as strong for me. So moving on to number 8, which is Planet Size X-Men, issue 1. And you just kind of need to read the title to know what's going on in this book. It is a new planet for the X-Men. So you thought it was crazy that there was an island for the mutants. Now they're like, nah. We want to be stronger, and we want more, and that is to have a whole planet to ourselves. So, also a lot of characters they're trying to juggle, which is why this is a little lower for me. I just felt like they're trying to cram a lot in, and there wasn't I don't want to say there wasn't a ton of progression, because, like, they made a planet, but, like, you could put 2 and 2 together that planet-size X-Men was gonna lead to that. So I just haven't been loving the Hellfire Gala. I just feel like it hasn't been as smooth as something like X of Swords was, where it felt a little more serialized. I feel like they've just been jumping all over the place, and there hasn't been as much character-driven story here, which is kind of getting me out of the story a bit. Artwork is pretty solid overall. It's, similar to what we've been getting with Hickman's run, so that was good. But yeah, just wasn't totally into the story. We'll see where this next era of X-Men is going, because we do have the more X-Men superhero team coming up with Jerry Dugan's run, and we do have this other event with Inferno, and this follow-up of Power of X and House of X, which I'm super excited for, because, we've been waiting for Moira for a long time, so I think I'm more excited for those things than them having a planet now. So I'm giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 8, I believe. So moving on to number 7, a new book from Boom Studios, and that is Save Yourself, issue 1. I was sold on the concept of magical girls, them not being the heroes of the story, and I thought that was kind of cool, breaking down a genre that it hasn't been done that often. I don't want to say that we haven't seen magical girl stories, especially in comics, but not in the way that we're seeing it here. But, I wanted to like this book a little bit more than I did. I love the idea that it was super queer, so that was definitely very cool. And I like the concept, like I was saying. I like the idea of the Magica girl stuff, but there wasn't any characters I felt fully attached to. And by the end of the issue, I'm like, I don't know if it really gave me enough to want to pick up that next issue, which is so important with an issue 1, especially an indie issue 1 like this. And the artwork was pretty solid, especially when you have close-ups, but there are times where people didn't have any faces, and it could have been more detailed. So I am a little bit on the fence with this book. I wanted to like it a lot more than I did, and there's obviously so many comics that come out every week, and I don't know if this did enough for me to say I need issue 2, and that was a little disappointing for me. So I'm giving that 3 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is 7 Secrets, issue 9. It's a little higher than we this current arc, I would say, because the last arc was like always my number 1 pick, but this current arc has been a little slow, and I would say the same thing about this issue. So there's some good parts in this issue, especially as we get to see our main character's mom take over not the company, but the organization, we'll call it. And we have a really big cliffhanger with the main character's dad still being alive. And you're like, okay, I kind of wish that was the whole issue, because there's some really slow moments, because it's after the war, people are trying to settle down. You get some, exposition with Amon and his people. And those parts were really lulled for me. I was like, okay, where are we going? Where we're going? And then we get to the more emotional moments and the more character-driven moments with, again, mom taking over the organization, and then the big cliffhanger of, well, first of all, her learning all the secrets, and then us learning at least one of the secrets. So I thought that was cool, and the next issue is supposed to be answers, so hopefully it will pick up a little bit, but I just thought this was a point A to point B issue with some sprinkling of good moments, with some amazing artwork as always, and I will always say that this is an anime come to life in a Western medium, which I think is really cool. So I'm giving that 3 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, and this is one of my most anticipated books, so a little upset that it was only made number 5, but that is Static Season 1, Issue 1. And I'm going to be doing a whole video comparing it to the television show. Hopefully we'll be posting that Friday, so look forward to that. But I'm going to just kind of dive into more of what this issue gave us. And you had to read the Milestone Returns one shot, which I didn't read. And I think that was the biggest disappointment of this issue, is that I felt like I was kind of reading in a middle of a book, and this is an issue 1. They're like, well, these events happened in Milestone issue 1 or Milestone issue 0, whatever it was. And I felt like that Virgil was a little bit too much of a loner, you know, and I don't want to compare it to the TV show too much because I'm going to do a whole video on it. But one thing I loved about the show was that, you know, Virgil's relationship with his family, with Richie in particular. So to see him pushing everyone away didn't make me connect to this issue as much as I wanted to. But I feel like there's a lot of promising moments. You know, still have the bang baby aspect. You are still in the beginning of his journey. And it looks like the mom's still alive, which is really interesting. And there's a pretty big cliffhanger. So I like the way the world was being built. But because of previous expectations, I just feel like it wasn't a perfect issue 1. It wasn't an issue where I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for issue 2. And that's a little disappointing just because, you know, I love Static and I want to love this book. And right now I'm just like, okay, it's an okay book. And I hope it escalates where I'm loving this book. Artwork is pretty solid for it. It is really interesting to see. It tries to match the lighter tone that I think most fans are used to for Static, or at least most fans my age are used to for Static. And the original Static Shock, which is the Milestone book, which was definitely a lot darker. So I like that it kind of matched both tones really well, and I enjoyed that aspect. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is the Fantastic Four, issue 33. This is a really fun issue. So I've been enjoying Dan Slott's Fantastic Four. I think it's just been a really fun ride. Some really good character drama and a lot of great bombastic action. And that's exactly what we get to see in this issue as well, where we get to see the wedding is finally here. No one wants to go. Everyone feels like they're in trouble with Dr. Doom. And as we lead into it, we as the audience know that Johnny slept with the bride-to-be, and the bride-to-be is very anxious about it, and in the end reveals that they were together, and Dr. Doom is not happy. And you know, it's a fight against Dr. Doom and the Fantastic Four in a very classic way. And overall, it's just a really solid, fun issue. Artwork, you know, was pretty strong overall, and yeah, it was just a fun character issue and exactly what I wanted from this wedding, and I'm just looking forward to seeing where this goes. So I'm giving that 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Stillwater, issue 8. If you guys are not reading this book, you totally should. It is such a good book, and I feel like too underrated. But I am happy. I think it got nominated for Eisner, so it is getting some love. But this issue, it diverts completely from our main character, and we learn about that sheriff, where she was not from Stillwater. She was having a really bad life in you know, not in her job. I think her job was the only thing that was kind of going okay for her. But her husband left her after it seems like her son had died. She had cancer on top of all that, and one of the people from Stillwater comes in and tries to kill her because she found out a little bit about Stillwater, and she's like, you know what? I don't even know why I want to live. You know, like I don't know why I'm fighting for my life. And he's like, you know what? You can fight for your life. I'll bring you to Stillwater and you won't die. And now we understand how she became the sheriff, and we go into the present where she's not the sheriff anymore. She gets shot. So there's a lot of great drama here. Just a really, really good issue. And I love just learning more about the surrounding characters, not just our main character, and the town in general, and just how how many twists and turns we get to see with this book. And the artwork is so good, especially for these flashbacks. I really feel like it does a really good job at bringing a kind of not nostalgic feel, but bringing a good tone for these flashbacks. So I enjoy the coloring and the art style. So giving that 4.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is, this is hard. Both these issues were so good. And that is Nightwing, issue 81. I hear it's already sold out, and by the end of the issue, you kind of know why. And with this one, we get to see Nightwing deal with the Heartless. There's some really, really good action between him and the Heartless, and obviously some great team-ups between Oracle, Tim, and Dick Grayson. But as we get to the end, you know, I love Dick so much, and Tom Taylor does such a great job at his characterization here. Is like he's still, you know, how much he's gone through as Rick Grayson, and that is not forgotten. And he gets a concussion, and obviously the warning of, if you get hit in the head again, you know, things might not go well. You still were shot in the head. There's still consequences to that. So we get to see that, and he doesn't care. You know, he wants to help his people, and there's this really good heart to Bloodhaven as well. That they're good people as well, and they want to help their city, and it's just so good and kind of like, I would say it's kind of Spider-Man-esque in that way. So even though it's a Batman book, Nightwing always had some Peter Parker-esque feeling to the character. And by the end is really a big cliffhanger where we get to see the Mayor Zuko, the character that they've been building up, is actually Dick Grayson's sister. And you're like, what is going on? What does this mean? Is she actually a villain? What does this mean for their relationship, and how similar, how different are they? I'm so excited. That is such a good cliffhanger, and it makes me even more excited for this book. And the artwork is so good for it, you know, from the action to the emotions. It's just such a good book. If you're not reading Nightwing, please do yourself a favor and read this book. It's so good. So giving that 4.5 stars, and that's my number 2. So if that was my number 2, what was my number 1? My number 1 this week was Radiant Black issue 5. And man, oh man, this book is so good. Last issue left us on a crazy cliffhanger. Our main character dies, or at least we thought he died. We find out he's in a coma. So he's not dead, but he's also very much not alive. So he's kind of holding on a string here. And this whole issue is about his best friend reacting to what happened to our main character, or not main character. Who knows who the main character is anymore. So, you know, even though he has these superpowers, the thing that he kind of dreamt of, he doesn't even want them. He's just like, he just wants his best friend back. And he goes up against the red Radiant Black, or Radiant Red, I guess we'll call her, and we find out it's a girl, actually, and we find out that, you know, she's having her troubles too. It's not like she's a villain, she's just struggling. And we find out there's more Radiant people, and it seems like these alien characters want to destroy them. So we learn a little bit about the real villain, who we thought was Radiant Red, and it just builds up this mythology really well by still hitting home with these emotions. And the way the plot is progressing, we're only up to issue 5, and I feel like so much has happened. The artwork is so splendid. The action in this issue, especially emotionally, between Radiant Black and Radiant Red, was so good in this issue, which is really what brought this to number 1 for me. It is just so good, and if you're not reading Radiant Black, guys, go pick up this book. It is so, so, so good, and I'm giving that 4.5 stars, and that is my pick of the week. Now, of course, we have the viewer's pick of the week, and from last week, that was James Bond. And here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Again, in the comments below, leave your pick of the week, and like, comment, and subscribe for this video. That way, you know, it helps the channel. Definitely go check out my Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics, like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her Dancer. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Comic Book Weekly, where we discuss all our favorite comic books with our comic book podcast. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Bye, guys.